Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on Tuesday that the country would respond to U.S. unilateral tariffs with similar measures. U.S. President Donald Trump temporarily suspended military aid to Ukraine until Zelensky commits to peace negotiation. And the European Commission proposed a $841 billion plan to toughen up regional defenses amid U.S. suspension of financial and military aid to Ukraine. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Cuba. We begin with the news. Canadian and Chinese products enter into effect on Tuesday. The tariff measures, which entail 25% taxes on Mexican and Canadian products and 20% on Chinese goods, were decreed after U.S. President Donald Trump declared that these countries had not done enough to stop the flow of fentanyl into the country. According to experts, the measure will affect almost $2.2 trillion in annual U.S. bilateral trade. Following the announcement, the governments of Mexico, Canada, and China unveiled their corresponding countermeasures. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on Tuesday that the country would respond to U.S. unilateral tariffs with similar measures. During her usual morning conference, Sheinbaum harshly criticized U.S. decision to impose tariffs on Mexican imports, despite the bilateral talks and mutual cooperation instances that had been carried out in the past months. The Mexican president highlighted that Mexico's actions have had positive consequences registered by U.S. agencies on matters such as fentanyl control and urged the United States to assume its own responsibilities on these and other topics such as armed traffic. As a response to the decision, Mexico is now set to announce tariffs and non-tariff measures on U.S. products.
But the unilateral decision that the U.S. is taking affects the national and foreign companies that operate in our country and also affects our people. That is why we have decided to respond with tariff and non-tariff measures that I will announce publicly next Sunday.
Also in this context, the Mexican president unveiled that the seizure of fentanyl from Mexico into the United States had decreased by 50% by January 2025.
In the case
of fentanyl trafficking, United States Customs and Border Protection's own figures show that fentanyl seizures in the United States from Mexico decreased by 50% from October of 2024 to January of 2025.
In addition, Mexico's head of state recalled that 74% of the high-caliber weapons seized in Mexico come from illegal trafficking from the United States.
On January 8 this year, the U.S. Department of Justice recognized the serious problem of arms trafficking from the U.S. to Mexico. 74% of high-powered weapons seized in Mexico come illegally from the U.S. It is time for every country to join our commitment.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he will impose tariffs of 25% on the United States in retaliation to the ones applied by the Donald Trump administration. Through a press release, Trudeau explained that the measure will be applied as of March 4th, with tariffs of 25% against $155 billion of American products. The Prime Minister urged the U.S. administration to reconsider its tariffs and said that Canada will stand firm in defense of its economy, its jobs, and fair deal. Trudeau also stated that he is in talks with Canadian provinces and territories to apply various non-tariff measures to the United States. And the Chinese government will impose 10 to 15% tariffs on agricultural products from the United States. The Chinese Ministry of Finance decided to impose a 50% levy on U.S. imports of chicken, corn, and wheat, as well as a 10% tax on imports of pork, beef, soybeans, aquatic commodities, fruit, and dairy products. Likewise, China's Ministry of Commerce announced adding a group of U.S. companies to its export control list, while taking a U.S. corporation to its list of unreliable entities. The latter will be analyzed as a case to be presented before the World Trade Organization. And in this context, the Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned the entry into force of the U.S. tariffs and affirmed that China will stand firm if a trade war ensues.
I believe you have noted the relevant Chinese department's announcements. The United States insisted on using the fentanyl issue as a pretext to impose additional tariffs once again on Chinese exports to the U.S. China has repeatedly enunciated its position of opposing this, and the countermeasures China has taken are entirely justified and necessary to safeguard its own rights and interests. The Chinese people will never yield to bullying or intimidation, or be deterred by hegemony. Pressure, coercion, and threats are not the right way to deal with China. Putting extreme pressure on China is aiming at the wrong target and making the wrong calculation.
We now have a first short break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump temporarily suspended military aid to Ukraine until his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky commits to peace negotiations. Local media reported that the president met with his cabinet to take several measures against the Kiev regime, which include the suspension of all military assistance to the country. This follows President Trump's statement that Ukraine must become more committed to peace. This follows a meeting between the two leaders in Washington in which the U.S. leader canceled the signing of the rare earth agreement with Zelensky, stressing that the Ukrainian president would not be welcomed back at the White House for what he described as a lack of gratitude for U.S. assistance and his disrespectful behavior in the Oval Office. The European Commission proposed Tuesday an $841 billion plan dubbed Rearm Europe to toughen operational defenses in order to defuse the crisis led by not counting anymore with the U.S. financial and military aid. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen highlighted the proposal's aim was to abrogate fiscal constraints on budgetary spending so that the states can ramp up their defense expenditures freely. The leader stressed the need to improve military equipment. The plan will be presented to the 27 EU members on Thursday emergency meeting in Brussels. The Rearm Europe plan focuses on surging the military spending of many EU members, which is below 2% of their GDP. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte urged EU states to spend over 3% of their GDP in defense.
We are in an era of rearmament. And Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
In Australia, authorities warned Queensland residents of a cyclone approaching the coast in the next few days. According to the Australian Bureau of Meteorology, tropical cyclone Alfred, with sustained winds of 95 kilometers per hour, is expected to make landfall north of Brisbane on Thursday night or Friday morning. Queensland Premier David Crisfoley has urged residents to be responsible in the face of the cyclone threat. In a related development, hundreds of residents in Brisbane and surrounding towns brought sandbags in anticipation of possible flooding. And the Egyptian delegation at the Arab League summit held Tuesday in Cairo presented an alternative plan for the restoration of the Gaza Strip and rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's proposal to evacuate the enclave. During the meeting, the League's members reiterated their rejection to Washington's forced displacement of Palestinians from the Strip and condemned the Israeli aggression, describing it as a stain on the history of humanity. They also warned that any attempt to displace Palestinian citizens is a violation of their right to independence and sovereignty. The regional bloc stressed that a just and true peace based on international legitimacy is the only way to end the conflict in the area. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stand again on Tuesday in his trial because he has been charged with corruption in several cases. The far-right Prime Minister faces charges of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in 3 separate cases during appearances in the district court. Netanyahu is the first sitting Israeli leader to take the stand as a defendant in the country's history. The trial is another low point for Israel's longest-serving politician, who also faces an international arrest warrant for war crimes stemming from the genocide perpetrated in the Gaza Strip. Under Israeli law, he is not compelled to resign unless he is convicted by the Supreme Court, a process that could take several months. In Kenya, the police repressed thousands of people from the Kakuma refugee camp who protested to demand immediate measures due to food and water shortages. As a result of the clashes, at least 4 people were wounded by bullets. The protests follow recent decreases in humanitarian aid, mainly due to reductions in funding from the United States Agency for International Development. The Kakuma Refugee Center has become home to more than 200,000 people, hosting neighbors from South Sudan, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Somalia. We now have our second short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. For a short break, be right back. Welcome back. Serbian opposition lawmakers disrupted a session of parliament on Tuesday, leaving 3 deputies injured in an action that comes as a sign of support for ongoing anti-corruption protests. Precisely, some parliament members set off flares and smoke grenades at the legislative session, wounding 3 lawmakers, including one who had a stroke and remains in critical condition, according to statements from the National Assembly's President, Ana Brnabić. The demonstration sought to show support for the anti-corruption protests taking place in the country after the collapse of a train station roof in Novi Sad last year that killed 15 people. The movement has put pressure on the government and led to the resignation of several high-ranking officials, including the Prime Minister. And Pope Francis has been reported in stable conditions on Tuesday after having suffered from 2 acute respiratory crises the day before. According to a Holy See statement, the pontiff remains vigilant, without fever and fully cooperating with the treatments. He was switched to high-flow oxygen therapy, and non-invasive and mechanical ventilation will be resumed on Tuesday night until the next morning as planned. Pope Francis suffered Monday 2 acute respiratory crises due to the accumulation of endobronchial mucus. His doctors keep a reserve prognosis without clarifying any evolution in his clinical condition. The 88-year-old pontiff has been in Rome's Gemelli Hospital since February 14th. Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival is the pinnacle of celebration and culture, earning its reputation as the greatest show on earth. To know more details on this festivity, we have contact with our collaborator, Mission Robinson. Hi, Mission. What can you tell us?
Most certainly, there's no place like home. And for 2025, Trinidad's theme has been Feel Like Home, bringing together persons from all across the diaspora, from all across the Caribbean region, even from international cities to right here where the heart of Carnival lives. there have been no major incidents for Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago for 2025. The Trinidad and Tobago's police service has reported a safe and enjoyable Carnival. You know something that's really important where Carnival is concerned? This celebration promotes unity, oneness of people, one humanity, one world at the end of the day. And it's been a fantastic showing of creativity, of the importance of assisting smaller enterprises, younger entrepreneurs, older entrepreneurs, all types of small businesses benefiting from Carnival 2025. In 2024, there were pretty good reported numbers where airlines are concerned, but for 2025, numbers have increased to over 400 new flights descending right here in Trinidad and Tobago. As I would have been mentioning, you know what's really important? The fact that when you come to Carnival, when you are in Trinidad and Tobago for Carnival, there's a friendliness, a rivalry, yes, between bands, but those ethnic barriers are broken down, economic barriers are broken down, social barriers are broken down. There is no classism where Carnival is concerned, okay? There's only one mass movement of people enjoying great vibes in recognition of the anti-colonial ties, oftentimes celebrated just before Ash Wednesday, today being the 4th of March 2025, and the vibes are still going. There's still a lot of pumping happening, a lot of separate parties. We would have run some numbers, and there are over 100 different events happening each week for the month of Carnival, spanning from the 1st of February until around the 15th or so of March. And it's just been a feel-good feeling, all inhibitions being released, people being friendly, being open, being welcoming to all types of visitors. No experiences of any type of xenophobia or anything of the like. Sounds like this one playing in the background by Machel Montano, promoting unity of Caribbean people, even our brothers and sisters from Latin America. We would have also carried some stories from Peru, from Brazil, from all over Latin America. Later this year in Barbados, Barbadians will be celebrating Carnival as well in August of 2025. And you know, it's something that people oftentimes say about Caribbean nations, that it feels like home, it feels like family, it feels like a safe place. And that is it, the unified story here in Trinidad and Tobago where Carnival is concerned. As we would have been mentioning, an estimated $640 million to be generated, as reported by the Trinidad and Tobago Tourism Authority from their ministers, to be generated from Carnival 2025. Yesterday, we would have also celebrated Juve in the early hours of the morning. Some have been going consistently and continuously where Carnival is concerned, stocked up on their vitamins, stocked up on their minerals. Of course, there's also the interjection of spirits as well, but it's just been a really good feeling being here in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm also smelling the whiff of delicious foods here in the Queen's Park Savannah. But even outside of town, people are celebrating these Carnival's festivities. Just a feel-good time to release, to enjoy the celebration of freedom. And, you know, it's great. It's great here in Trinidad and Tobago. For teleSUR English, I'm Miss Ron Robinson.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.